All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Top Lawyer with Sean Quinn. We've got a fantastic broadcast here on the Lawyer to Lawyer Network. Uh, One of the things I'd like to address immediately is the fact that we are on the StreamYard platform, and we get the opportunity now to be available on Apple TV, Roku TV, and Fire TV via the NetStream app. And so we're bringing a whole new platform to the Delaware Valley and around and to our friends around the country. And of course, we're still on the radio as well. So we have so many great, exciting things that we're doing. Here's our host, Sean Quinn of Quinn Law Group. Sean, how are you, my friend?
I am well, Joe. Good to see you as always once a month. And I think this new platform, and we're going to talk about it and dive in today. And obviously, it's only both of our mugs and both of our voices today, and that's by design. As we launch this new platform, you and I have been talking about for months about how do we take the Top Lawyer Show and really put it on a national platform, a national stage, and take it beyond our little circle here in Philly, and let folks know outside of the Delaware Valley exactly what we're doing, why it's great, and introducing people to maybe some lawyers that they don't know from across the country that are doing an outstanding job. So I'm excited about the platform, and frankly, for all the ladies out there, getting to see Joe's face on a video camera, it's not the price that only I should pay to come into a radio.
I got to be honest. I fought the video because I got into radio because
thanks for radio. I get it. Yep, I know. I'm blessed with that criminal punishment that our parents put on us every day.
Here's the thing: I fought technology as much as I could, but here we are. It outlasted us, and
yeah,
we're so excited about this because.
Well, listen, in 5 minutes we're going to be replaced by AI bots doing the show for us. So let's enjoy it while we can.
On image and likeness, okay.
That's right.
And I get to do a little touch up on me. So
listen, I'm trying to create an avatar of me to replicate me doing any chance I have to hang out with you to do shows. So my AI avatar will be that agent is being built as we speak.
Hurry it up. Right.
That's right. Let's go. But we have a fun show today, and I'm excited.
I know you like to get into sports. When we start bringing our national guests on the show, what are we going to do then? That is going to be an interest. Maybe that becomes a debate show. They will fun when we start off.
Yeah, they will be subjected to constant bludgeoning of Philly sports talk, and just have to grin and take it. Maybe they'll look over my shoulder and see my play like a champion and my Rudy jersey on the wall, and some other topics. So we do talk some ND, in my outside of this realm. So it'll be fun. But yeah, exciting times in Philly as always. This is actually, we're recording this right now. Obviously at the first week of September and of 2025, and it's the Eagles start on Thursday, and in the big game against Dallas, and the start of trying to defend a championship there. And then I usually hate this time of year though, because Philly sports starts getting competitive with one another, and you have the Eagles playing while the Phillies are in the hunt for Red October. So it's always a challenge because it kind of dilutes some of the fan base. But listen, I'd rather be in a town where every season is competitive rather than having, dull seasons.
No question. I always find the most difficult time of year is after the Super Bowl. Okay. You and I are both football and baseball guys. You played college football. And we both played football and baseball throughout our life. Hockey and basketball have been on the down, slope here in Philly. Not that we're fair weather fans, but the process has worn us both out.
It processed all right.
Yeah, and the other thing is, I still reminisce about the Broad Street Bullies. And so we're waiting for hockey and and basketball to come back, of course.
Yeah, I think, the last couple of years when the Sixers were doing good, it was okay because you knew they'd be in the playoffs. They were in the hunt. Last year was really tough post Super Bowl, but I guess the good news is the Eagles went really far and played into February, and then it wasn't that far that we had to tolerate the Sixers before pitchers and catchers started. So at least there was a quick turnaround in that February to March and then April when they really get into the baseball season.
Okay, so and by the way, tomorrow, okay, Thursday when we're recording this, it is an incredible day. You got the Phillies and the Brewers finishing up their series, and then you got the Eagles launching the NFL season against Dallas. I'd like to, if you would, Sean, because you're a big baseball guy, I'd like to talk about the Phillies, if you would. I have to tell you that about a month ago, I was ready to get rid of Dombrowski, basically because of last year's quote telling us he wasn't willing to spend any money on relievers or retaining the guys that we had. And of course, our relief, our bullpen has been our Achilles heel this year, along with not timely hitting at times. But and then all of a sudden, he brings in Johan Duran, okay? Where that guy came from, okay?
Yeah.
And within minutes, I'm trying to get a street named after Dombrowski. I was fortunate enough to go there and see this spectacle. Now, that was his first blown save.
Yeah.
But
I was there at that game too. Yeah. And I literally said it to my wife as we're sitting there. I'm like, I don't really want to be here for the first blown save, and I called it.
I know. It was crazy. But it has changed the chemistry of the team around. Talk about, obviously we're up 6 games as we speak here. I think 6. And but it's a battle. It's going to be a battle to the end. And talk about where you think we're at right now.
Yeah. So you and I are fairly similar in our, we try to look at things objectively, and you can't let vibes control how you feel about a team, but it's hard not to in anything, right? You don't want to be vibe driven, and your questioning of Dombrowski was similar to mine in the offseason, because I really approach these things much like I build a law firm. I'm like, you have to have the A players in the right seats. And you're right. I don't feel that we came into this season with an A bullpen by any stretch of the imagination. And listen, when Alvarado went down, with his PEDs and the use of Ozempic, and I guess they have a cute name for him, calling Hozempic now instead of Jose. That forced our hand to kind of make a move. And to some extent, it was a blessing in disguise, because we got a closer for the first time, probably since Papelbon, that can actually close a game consistently. So, it's certainly one of Dave's best moves as a GM.
Because we had him for a couple of years.
I think Dave has gotten a pass because, he's got such star-driven team, but most of these stars were signed by his predecessor, right? They were signed by the previous administration. So Harper coming here was done by Klentak and the boys. That wasn't done by Dombrowski. And, to some extent, people were looking at him. And although in this year, thankfully, Taijuan Walker has rebounded extremely nicely compared to where he was the past 2 years. So things have made Dave look good. It's sort of like Topper, though. Like my feeling about Topper is, yeah, he's a nice guy, but he's like Canadian Girardi to me. He's like the nice version of Joe Girardi. And, he doesn't really, in my opinion, manage a bullpen incredibly well. And I think, but to some extent, he follows the Joe Torre disciple, where it's like stay out of a star-studded team and let them kind of manage themselves. And listen, if it leads to a World Series, great. If it doesn't, I think you're going to have some heads rolling.
Well, it's interesting because there's a lot to unravel there. Number one, obviously, you talked about for the relief, the closer position. We'll get to that in a second. However,
we like to refer to them as the Durantula,
with the Durantula, and it is a spectacle, man.
It's awesome.
However, having said that, I'd like to add a stat a stat or whatever you want to call it. They have all these new we used to just have ERA, hits, batting average. Now we got all these other.
We got FIP, we got fielding independent pitching, we got WOBA, we got all sorts of good things.
We need lawyers like you to be able to understand that stuff.
Listen, I live in a world of acronyms as a lawyer, so I love it.
Well, I know exactly, but here's one of the things I like to say. I wonder if there's an acronym for batting average when you're down by when you're up or a tie or down by 1, and then or you're down by 3 or 4. And the reason I bring that up is because if you don't have good relievers and obviously good pitching, hitting becomes these dudes are squeezing the bat, becomes a lot more pressure. I wonder what the definitions are, to be honest with you, the batting average and the statistics are when
the analytics departments have all that data, right? We don't get to see all of that on the scoreboard. And frankly, despite having some of the best looking scoreboards in the neighborhood, it often goes all out, and we don't have batting average where it should be.
It's ridiculous.
And on base, I got to talk to somebody who's running the big board and do that. But
I got to have ChatGPT on my phone just to understand.
But Baseball Reference and all those pages that keep advanced metrics have every data analytic and tell you what a guy hits post 7th inning with 2 strikes, and it's just the analytical game that we play in baseball is really quite amazing. I mean, as a data-driven law firm, I love it. I'm constantly looking at data, looking at numbers, looking at things like that affect performance, what are things like that as they affect me. But it's amazing. But you have to, and I know that the old school guys that we kind of grew up as, and it's like you have to have some feel, you have to have some touch, you have to have, see what a guy looks like, and I think the best managers, the best executives these days have a good mix of both. Have real old school feel, but also have numbers and data that back things up and hopefully give you some guidance.
Right. And my point for all that, really just not understanding that crap, right? Just give me the ERA, the wins, the losses, the walks. Give me the batting average, and all that. But I get it. I'm an old school.
Well, and you look at two things like, there has, as we grew up, batting average, RBIs, home runs,
on base percentage.
That was, but it's funny is on base percentage is something that is more valued now than when we grew up. On base, because the ability to take walks, especially in a strikeout era, is so valuable. So that's why, if you want to, one of the reasons why I think beyond the home runs that Kyle Schwarber is getting all of the love, and deservedly so this year, is he takes walks. His on base percentage is through the roof. And, and so his strikeouts have ticked up a little bit this year compared to last year. But when you take walks and you're close to 400 on an on base at like 370, I mean, you're getting into Barry Bonds territory, in terms of on base percentages. And that's crazy.
Well, what's interesting, look at Juan Soto. His on base percentages would literally, it's one of the top 5.
That's why he got 700 million.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So, you look at it, his eye is impeccable. And the guy is, he's got, obviously issues, and he's not the best clubhouse guy and all that, but he better get better there. But the point is that on base percentage is what got him to 765.
I'm reminded of the commercial from Smoltz and Maddox in the 90s. And it's like, remember when the ESPN commercial, when they started hitting the weights and they're like, chicks dig the long ball.
Right. Well, so that's why I'm saying if, all those stats hitting have to go up when you got pitchers that can hold the line. Okay. Especially in the short series. That's why I was upset
I just don't love some of the moves, like the stuff that drives me crazy as a, former catcher and guy who just loves the nuance, and former coach, is like, there's some obvious things that I just see. And it's like, the night that Durantula blew that first save, I love JT. I love the way he calls games. But when you call 6 splitters in a row, when you have 102 in your back pocket, like, throw the 102. Throw the 102 until they prove they can hit it. Let's not mess around with a splitter.
What's interesting? I was, for
the love of God, bunt sometimes. It won't kill you.
But who could do that? But having said that, one of the things you mentioned, obviously, Duran, we're talking about, Sean, and you mentioned obviously Papelbon. Go back to Billy Wagner and
don't forget Brad Lidge. Got us a
Brad
title.
Lidge, right, of course. But I'll ask you this question, and Lidge is
a Notre Dame guy, so that's why I'm partial.
Oh yeah, And I'm gonna go partial too. And you know, him and Tug McGraw, the greatest two moments in the history of our 100+ year, 125, 130-year history. Um, but my question to you is why? Why is it so hard to find a real closer? Like it's a mystery of epic proportions. You know, I mean, Alvarado, he got off to a good start. He's not a closer. And
Yeah.
obviously, you know, Strom is not a closer either. Good long relievers. You know, and you know that, but
those
what
the
is
way
it?
I look at it is those last three outs, they're different. They're different. They are, you can be, you know, the best in the world. And honestly, it makes you have more appreciation for a guy like Mariano Rivera. Who
I
did
am
it
just
for,
thinking about him.
I mean, that's I was literally just talking about this morning, and it's like you value what a guy like Mariano did, and the reason the conversation came up was we're looking at Aroldis Chapman didn't give up a hit in the month of August, and what he's doing is just throwing gas again. He's literally throwing gas, and you have to tip your hat. As much as I can't stand Craig Kimbrell, the fact that he did it as long as he did in this environment, like it is. If you get 5 years out of a closer these days, that's a lot. The game is changing, and bullpen arms are so interchangeable year to year, and it's why we see them the most pieces traded at every trade deadline are always arms. But I think the reality is, Joe, is that you know these guys all throw gas. Almost all of them exclusively throw gas, and we might think that 100 miles per hour is hard to hit, and it is. Don't get me wrong, but these dudes can hit it. Like our hitting across the board in the Major League Baseball is better than it's ever been, and the arms are better than they've ever been.
You know what's interesting, Sean? One, it's so funny you mentioned that. You know, you have coached Little League Baseball. You know, you're a big you know the game from the ground up and from yeah. And they talk about kids today having so many more things to do. That's why there's not as many kids playing sports. They got video games. They got all these other things, right? And all these other sports. But damn, you know, when you and I were growing up, and I know I got you by a couple, more than a couple years, but the bottom line is it was J.R. Richards, Nolan Ryan, Goose Gossage, a handful of guys could throw 100. Now they all do. But here's something interesting before you comment. You can look at Sir Anthony Dominguez. The one thing this guy Durant has, if you don't have late movement on that ball, they can hit it no matter how fast it's coming. As soon as I saw Durant and I saw that ball tail off a little bit, I went, oh boy, they can't barrel the ball up. Okay. That's the key. So, and then
they have this, and they can listen. And the reality is, you know, there were guys spinning baseballs back when we grew up and the era, but we just didn't know it. We didn't have Rapsodo machines. We didn't have the ability to adjust spin rate and all these things. It's a different era that we're playing in, and now they're teaching. You know, I have a son who plays high school baseball, and they're teaching, you know, these kids how to shape pitches, how to you know, approach these things, and it's a different game. And honestly, if you don't use analytics, you are going to get passed up. You are going to get the game is going to pass you by unless you work on these things. It's that, you know, we are seeing, I think we harken back because we always look back with rose-colored glasses on most aspects of our life. And we're like, I was so much better then. And the reality is the hitting is better now. Like the hitters are better. Like these are better athletes. These guys are specimens. And we just have to appreciate it. But the game has leveled up. The pitching is better. And I'm guilty of this sometimes too, where I'm like, where are the guys that could paint the corners like Maddox and those guys did? What the reality is, they had a bigger strike zone to work with. They were calling strikes up to the letters back then, not the belt.
You know, it's Sean. Everything you say, you know, it leads to another. You know, like 100%. But like first thing I think of when you say that is you got the box now. Okay.
That changes our perspective, doesn't it?
Oh my God. Could you imagine Maddox now? I mean, you know,
he never would have thrown a strike.
Right. And you know what? I have I talk to many people on the radio and all that, and they break them on the umps. But man, let me tell you something. As tough as it is, and you got AI coming in and all that, just like you got AI coming into the law, and we're going to segue fairly soon. Now, I just want to let everybody know you're listening to Top Lawyer with Sean Quinn here on the Lawyer to Lawyer Network. Obviously, we're ecstatic about the show's now available on Apple TV, Roku, and the Fire TV via the StreamYard app. Having said that, you have, can you imagine what the umpires? So you can complain about the umpires. You can call them what you want, but they're better than anybody else that could do it on the planet. Okay, so if they're bad, they're the best of the bad. And it's a very difficult situation. But
I can tell you, listen, as somebody who has umpired games, because we were kind of like required to through the Little League, it was terrible. Like it's not an easy job. And yes, we are, especially in East Coast fan bases, we are on every pitch, right? So I always say there's not much difference between us, New York, and Boston when it comes to, watching every pitch of every game. We're crazy fanatical, and to the point where when I'm at a game, I have the MLB Ballpark app up on my phone just so that I can criticize the guy for being 2 inches off the plate and calling the strike, because that's what we do. And we get down to the point where I know Dan Iasonia is behind the plate, and I'm calling your name, Dan. So
but could you imagine their union rep, how much they must have fought that box? It's hard enough. Don't get me wrong. I mean, we all have issues.
I think the system that we saw earlier this year, where you have a challenge system, is the right balance of it. Is that we have a challenge system for overturning an egregious call, and you don't get to use it multiple, every time, but having some that it can literally change the outcome of games. And I think I go back to, what was the kid Alejandro, was it Galarraga, the kid in Colorado that almost pitched a perfect game, but they missed the call. Was it Jim Joyce?
Oh yeah, and the guy came out crying the next night.
I mean, I wish for that kid's sake, we never really. That was the highlight of his career, and it was a thing that almost happened. But if we had instant replay, it would have solved the problem.
And I do want to say one thing, because we have 5 minutes to the break. Okay, and one of the things I'd like to say is even stealing bases now. Okay, used to be when the ball beat the player to the bag, he was out. Okay. Yep. Now, you see the way the guys are stealing bases. They're with arm movement and all that.
They got swim moves, man. I have like PTSD from D linemen rushing me.
Right. I mean, it's amazing. So it's so hard to hit a moving target, and those arms are moving. They'll fake with the left hand and get it. So instant replay and AI and all that obviously changing the game. Before we rock and roll from our sports segment, and we'll talk Eagles. I guess next month, but because I know we got there's so much to talk about there, but we want to get into the law a little bit. But obviously we're in September now, okay, and Phillies are, obviously that they're down the home stretch, okay. Your thoughts on how we're going to finish this thing out? Do we have a chance? What are your thoughts?
I like where we're at. I feel the team. Has the right mix of performance from the bottom of the lineup. The bottom of the lineup has really shown up to the point where you look at the game the other night, I think they had 10 hits from Marshawn down. So if your bottom of the lineup is hitting, you have a good chance, because the one thing has been true all season long, and that is the pitching, the starting staff has posted every game. Almost, I mean, not every game, but 80% of the games, they are giving you quality starts. It hurts without Wheeler. There's no question. And I think had Wheeler been here, I would like our chances that much more, because he's a top 5 pitcher in baseball when healthy. And I think losing him is devastating. But the reality is we have another one, and that is Christopher Sanchez. And he is unbelievable. And his development over the past 2-3 years. But, in a short series, I don't know that there's a team that can match our top 3 guys in a short series. Maybe now without Wheeler, but the reality is good pitching beats good hitting in the playoffs. And we have a closer at this point. Yeah, it's got some blemishes, but there's not a closer that doesn't have a blemish. And I think we have some strong arms in the pen. If we could just get a little bit of hitting, and which is almost laughable for me to say when you have two $30 million guys in your lineup and three $20 million guys. It's hard to say but here we are. Marsh, Bader, have
Starting
really
to step up.
Yeah, and that's give another hat tip to Dombrowski. Going to get Harrison Bader is certainly looking like a good move at this point.
Yeah.
And I just hope for Casty that he can somehow.
That's that right there.
If he can somehow snap out of it, but I'm in a place right now where I trust Kepler more than him, and that's a pretty sad place to be.
Well, it's interesting. We're going to take the sports talk to the break, but
yeah,
I was just going to talk about Castellanos. It just seems like, he doesn't have the fire. He's got another year left on his contract.
Yeah, he's gone. He's like, I think they will somehow find a way to trade him in the offseason. I think they have run their course, and the latest battle between Topper and Casty is not going to end in Casty's favor. That's for sure.
Well, I think what happened, and Topper started to take him out of the lineup, and
he had to. His batting average has gone down 30 points since the All-Star break. Yeah. 30. So the reality is, I call me a true believer. I still think Johan Rojas is valuable to this team. I think he's unbelievable. And I would, listen, if I was managing this team, I would have Marsh, Bader, and Rojas out there and have Kepler as my fourth guy, and potentially Weston Wilson, as a righty and lefty off the bench. But that's me. But I value defense with a pitching staff the way we have.
All right, so let's do this. Let's take a quick break. Okay, and then we'll come back and talk a little bit of law. We'll have more from Top Lawyer with Sean Quinn in just a minute.
Welcome to the Jet Setters and the High Rollers, to the Shot Takers and the Tastemakers. Welcome to the Viewfinders, the Thrill Seekers, and the Night Owls. Welcome to everything you could possibly want on one 5-mile island. Welcome to the Wildwoods. Book your stay today.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Top Lawyer with Sean Quinn here on the Lawyer to Lawyer Network. Available now on Apple TV, Roku TV, and Fire TV on the NetStream app. Of course, still available on WWDB Talk 860. And we just had a fantastic show opening, talking sports with Sean. And it's great to listen and talk baseball with Sean. Really, that conversation,
now we're going to do the thing that actually makes me money in my life.
I know.
It's my other job, other than being a professional Philly sports fan. At like 80% of the games, I have to actually show up at day to day and lead a team of lawyers and professionals at the Quinn Law Group. So I don't take either job, being a Philly sports fan or the leader of a prominent personal injury firm. I don't take either job. I do both all out. That's for sure.
No question. You're not half-assed on any of them.
There's zero chance that I do anything half-assed.
So let's remind our listeners, if you will, especially our national listeners now, a little bit about yourself and Quinn Law Group.
Yeah. So we a little bit about our team and our firm over here. We are I would say like boutique personal injury firm here based in Old City in Philadelphia. We're right on the edge of Society Hill. We moved over here after 15 years at 1500 Market. And then before that, I was always in Center City here in Philadelphia. But when I opened this firm 12 years ago, we had a simple mission, and that is continue doing an outstanding job representing the folks who suffer personal injuries or wrongful death in New Jersey and Pennsylvania. We have offices in both states. We cover from Pittsburgh to Philly, from Sussex County all the way down to Cape May County in New Jersey, and everything in between. So our reach is statewide in both of those states, and then on a case-by-case basis, I'll have cases in other jurisdictions. Like I have a construction accident case going right now in New York, where I'm admitted for that case. So, our practice is fairly diverse within the personal injury space. Anything from your trucking accident to your car crash to your fall down, trip and fall case to a liquor liability case, one that's near and dear to your heart, Joe, from your former life, is going after
nightclub, right?
going after bars for over serving patrons that ultimately either hurt themselves or hurt others. And we have a lot of interesting cases, from drowning cases to where I spend the vast majority of my time, though, is representing workers that are injured on the job through the fault of somebody else. And while we don't do the workers' compensation work in-house, we team up with other firms in the region to make sure that they're getting their workers' comp benefits. We are trying to fill the other void that happens in a lot of these cases, and that is holding people that are maybe not their employer, not their coworker, accountable when they're hurt from the carelessness or the unsafe work practices from another person. So that's where I step in. We make it whole, because the workers' comp world does not compensate people fully. It only pays their medical expenses and a portion of their wages. It doesn't compensate them for the pain that they suffer. It doesn't compensate them for the loss of enjoyment of life, the permanent disability that they sometimes suffer as a result of these tragic accidents. So, I'm a big believer in protecting the injured worker, and obviously, much of your career is part of Philly labor, and making sure that our union members, the hardworking members of our society, have the right type of leadership and counsel that they need when facing what is sometimes the worst day of their lives, and often even more so for their families' lives. And I have the kind of the unique perspective of, having grown up in a blue collar family, having seen what it's like. I'm not a lawyer's son. I'm a landscaper's son. I always look at my life, and I look at all the union workers in my family, and most of my family did not go to college. And I look at how it was important for my father growing up that I went to college, and I didn't have to break my tail every day outdoors, rain or shine, to do what I had to do. And I have that unique perspective of speaking that language, understanding where they came from, and I can speak their language and understand where they came from because I came from the same place. And I think it gives me a kind of a unique advantage when I go in front of a jury and try a case, and know that I'm skilled enough to do the work, but also know how to talk to a jury and can really articulate what these folks have gone through because I know their life.
Sean, it's interesting because we're right on the tails of the Labor Day weekend and Labor Day.
Yeah.
And of course, this show and all of our Lawyer to Lawyer radio was born from our injured workers program with the unions. Okay. And the injustices that are just unimaginable that occur every day to people who have worked hard their whole life, maybe for the same employer. Okay. Something happens. And even if that employer supports their injured worker, okay, the insurance company's a totally different ballgame. So where loyalty is we're Philly guys, so loyalty comes natural to us. And from my union community, and like you said, your family, loyalty is second to none. So at the end of the day, you expect that loyalty. Okay. You get injured on a job. You've been working for the same company for 30 years, 20 years. By the way, as an iron worker, union iron worker, which my brother and I are, Brian Doherty, who's producing this show right now. We have always had, great benefits and all those things. Okay. Yep. And loyalty's been number one, but after all that, and we've had opportunity as iron workers to work for many signatory contractors. Some unions, like for example, TWU 234 SEPTA, they got one contractor. That's it. So you lose that job, you're done. We have 300 in the building trades. That's us. And it's different with every union. But the point is, sometimes we're on one-day jobs. Some days we're on one-year jobs. Other guys are steady for career. You get injured. You expect the same loyalty in return, and in steps the insurance company. Okay. And that's where, thankfully, guys like yourself. And when we talk about, and since, you were talking about the injured workers, and there's a couple different situations, like you said, you work hand in hand with workers' compensation attorneys who focus on the lost wage part. okay, and getting their the workers lost wages and their benefits in that area, and their weekly workers compensation check taken care of. In your world, okay, it's called what we call a third party case.
Yep.
You mentioned it in when you were describing it, but talk about that part of it and what, because there's a lot of individuals that workers' comp is no fault. So if you swing a big beater and break your leg, you're still entitled to workers' compensation.
Yep.
Okay, it's a no fault statute. However, if by any chance you're working and you're walking on the ground, let's just say I'm picturing a big one of those big holes in Center City where the job site's coming out of the hole, we called a high-rise building, and there's a hole dug.
Sure.
And you didn't dig it. Your company didn't dig it. It was dug by another company, the general contractor. They have no caution tape around it, and you fall in it. That means it's somebody else's fault.
Yep.
Take it from there, Sean.
Yeah, no, I'm literally right before we got on this case, right before we got on the radio today, I was literally working on a case. It's very similar circumstances. I represent a gentleman who was working as a laborer on a construction site in one of the new condo buildings that went up in West Philly within the past 2 years. And he was doing some general cleanup, general labor on the site. And the subcontractor, he was working for one sub, and one of the other subcontractors that was doing the framing had there was a cutout in the floor, which was eventually going to be a hole where they extended in a staircase that went from the basement to one floor up. They had a metal plate that was secured or should have been secured when it was not in use. So the framing contractor was throwing debris down to the ground floor where they could get it out. Happens on tons of job sites every day. And you're either supposed to put some caution tape up, some sort of stanchion to show you when it's in active use. Well, the folks failed to secure the metal plate and didn't put it on. My guy's cleaning up, falls straight through the hole, fractures some vertebrae, brain injury, neck injury. Here we are 3 years later, and he's still getting ongoing medical treatment. So, yes, he got workers' comp. He has a workers' comp lawyer, referred him to another firm to handle his workers' comp benefits, and that's very limited. It's medical expenses and a portion of what his average weekly wage was, and it was roughly 2/3 of that. So tell a family to go live on 2/3 of your wages and say good luck. And most of these guys are underpaid to begin with. So he had workers' comp coverage through that. But yeah, you're right. It's you think your employer is going to treat you well. There's no honor amongst thieves when it comes to those insurance carriers. They don't care about that loyalty, and they'll do everything in their power to try to screw that worker over from their workers' comp benefits. But where I come in is try to fill out that picture. We got in, we investigated, and found out that the responsibility for this accident wasn't my client's fault. It wasn't his employer's fault. It wasn't his coworker's fault. It was the general contractor for failing to have any sort of work site safety program in effect on this job site. It started from the top down and continued from the bottom up. And these other subcontractors, they hired some fly-by-night subcontractor who was a non-union worker to work on this job, and they didn't even have insurance. And, it's just a calamity of errors that happens all the time with these subcontract deals. But you need a lawyer, when you're in this situation, that knows how to navigate their way through the OSHA regulations, the contract analysis, looking for how they're going about, and did they have a job site safety program in effect? Were they having toolbox talks? Were they communicating these things? Were they planning for safety on a job site? These things are incredibly important, and the folks that get the recovery that they need to cover for the lifetime or even a short time period of agony and pain and disruption that it has over their lives. You need a lawyer who knows how to navigate that system, because you're right, it's not no fault. I have to prove everything in the context of those cases. So it's really important that you have somebody that knows the game and been doing it a long time and has some credibility when it comes to the other side, because the insurance carriers know one thing about me. They know I'll try a case. and they know I'll beat them. So that's how I always look at it. And yeah, that sounds a little bit cocky, a little bit bravado, but we're pretty confident in the work that we do and our track record.
So, and when you look at these, one of the things that we've said many times is, some people, obviously, you get injured, you may not have any background or knowledge in regards to the law or the right lawyer. Okay, and one of the things we've seen many times is people grabbing what we call dabblers, people who are attorneys. They may be outstanding at wills and estates, or
That would be like me taking a workers' comp case. I don't know what I'm doing.
no, but it's interesting though, because in a case like this, okay, you're the specialist here. When a work compensation, so it, depending upon who gets the case first, you or the comp attorney, why it's important to get an outright expert is because if you get the wrong type of attorney, and it might be a friend of a friend or a family member, maybe they do family law, maybe they do wills and estates, whatever, some business law, they're going to help John's friend Bob, right?
Yeah.
Well, if they don't realize that there's a third party element in this situation, okay, first of all, anybody, like you just said, anybody who is dealing, who's not an expert, and that goes for every area at all, just like medicine, should not be practicing workers' compensation or personal injury law.
Yeah.
Okay. And so only a good workers' compensation attorney. How about you take it a step farther?
Yeah, I mean, Joe, if you are walking down the street, it used to be a day where you were running, plays on the football field, but say you hurt your knee. Okay. Are you going to your family doctor to fix that knee, or are you going to a knee surgeon? They're going to go to an orthopedist or a knee surgeon, somebody who can actually treat the injury.
That's true, Sean, but this is where I'm going with this. On a work injury, if you're dealing with individuals that aren't experts, either in work comp or in PI, they may not look to see that there's a third party element to the case. So imagine if somebody gets injured, right? I got I'm on Chat GPT now. I'm a dinner
Look at
table.
you. We're gonna have AI Joe here. I'm gonna have to change your name.
Boom, right? You can't sue your employer as
my friend Claude. Claude is a good one too, buddy.
Okay, so
Gemini. We'll get you the trifecta.
But as much as I should have no business giving anybody advice, neither should a wills and estates attorney or a business attorney, a real estate attorney who's the best on the planet.
Yep.
Why? Because yes, everybody knows that you can't sue your employer as a work comp attorney. Okay. But if you don't have the right work comp attorney or PI attorney, you may find out 10 years down the road or 5 years down the road that there was a third party case there, and you did not have somebody that was looking in every direction. Okay. And so when that workers' compensation attorney has that case, a good workers' comp attorney will look and see if there is a third party case and get it to somebody like yourself right away, because and even if they don't know, a good one is smart enough to call Sean Quinn and say, Sean, take a look at this. It looks like there may be a third party element. And at that point, the injured worker should be thanking God that they're in good hands. One of the things that's important, though, and the reason why you need to have the best of the best is the resources. Okay, what don't injured workers or personal injury victims understand about the law firms that they are retaining? Okay, obviously you want to retain the best, but talk about the importance. You're fighting the conglomerates. If you're the little guy like myself, or a worker on a job, and they have to also be looking at an attorney who can fight the big corporations who have unlimited resources. So it's important that you pick the right attorney that has the resources, and like you said, Sean, who is willing to go the distance. Talk about the importance of finding the firm with the right and the right amount of resources to go the distance, instead of somebody who's saying, I'm not going to spend money on that expert because I got to pay the rent this month, and who's crap out of luck, the injured worker or the injury victim. Comment on that, sir.
Yeah, critically important, and probably an issue that most people don't even realize or see when they hire a firm. And it's a problem in our industry because we have a lot of settlement mills out there that are quick to churn and burn cases. So it's not just the workplace accident cases. It's particularly evident in the motor vehicle accident, the car crashes, where people are just churning and burning these cases and settling these cases on the cheap because they don't want to spend the money necessary to investigate, to do the legwork, to get somebody maximum compensation. So it starts with, how you go about your investigation as a law firm. Are you hiring investigators? Are you sending folks out on the streets to get videos and take statements? And do you have a team in-house that knows what to do with that information? For the folks that are in the building trades out there, it'd be sort of like building a house without having any foundation under it, and making sure that you dot the I's, cross the T's, make sure all the things that are necessary. And you want to hire a firm out of the gate that has trial experience, ones that aren't just going to take your case, run it for 3 months, and then, oh crap, I now need a lawyer that can actually try this case if I can't settle it on the cheap because I don't know what I'm doing. So you want to make sure that you have the firm that has expertise in the area. That's one thing, but make sure that they have a track record of trying cases, spending the money necessary, getting the right experts in place, so that they can have the best chance of success. Whether that, listen, still 90% of these cases or better are still settling. But the reality is you're not settling these cases for top value unless you've done the work.
Okay, so when you say that, right? Well, we talked a little bit about AI in baseball and a couple other areas on this broadcast. But the insurance companies use AI too, and they use it in different ways. One of them ways is they know who the firms are and the attorneys are that will not go to court. That won't go to distance. That's where
track record. So the insurance companies have been using data. So we get back to where we were talking earlier on the show about data and analytics. For years, insurance companies have been tracking data about claims, what they're worth, how much they should pay on these cases. There's systems like Colossus out there that they use to plug in diagnosis codes and then tell their adjusters what this case should settle for and do that. So they've been doing that for years. Now, with the advent of AI in different systems, they are now reviewing records at a breakneck speed to get through things, run through things, and you have to beat them at their own game from a claim standpoint. And that's something we've really leaned into from an AI perspective in our own firm, is terms of like generating quick reviews of records, speed up the time of those things to beat the insurance companies at their own game. But then that other piece, which has always been done by the insurance companies, and it didn't take AI to do it, and that is measuring track records and looking at who's the firms that are actually in court trying cases. And listen, I'm not the only trial lawyer in Philadelphia that tries cases. There's a lot of us. A lot of my brethren and sisters in the PA Philly Trial Lawyers Association, PATLA, PAJ for Pennsylvania Association for Justice, and then across the river in New Jersey for NJAJ. There's a lot of really good trial lawyers out there that have a track record and a pedigree of taking these insurance companies to task. But it's the general practice that takes a little bit of everything. Doesn't actually try cases. Those are the ones you really need to worry about.
Now, interesting, because when you talk about recoveries, okay, a lot of people will sit there and you do have all these. And look, there's a business model for everybody. I'm not coming down on anybody, but you have a lot of these ridiculous late night commercials. I see some with some like
it's not limited to the late night. It's every day, all day.
No question. But at night,
between the billboards and the late night commercials. Whew.
You get those at late night. You get the infomercials though, and it's just that But and by the way, we watch the ball games. You and I religiously. You get the commercials. It's better than winning a World Series. Getting a discount on your insurance, right?
Well, I mean, look, it's no secret, that If you're not staring at one of the most prominent plaintiffs' lawyers behind home plate every night in town, or his partner, you're looking around at every other corner, and it's every other firm in town, right? So whether it's the billboard, the commercials, things like that, there's a lot of players in the space that we're in.
Well, okay, so I want to spitfire a little bit here, okay, because we only have 5 minutes left, man, and this is, but when you talk about recoveries for people, it's not just a number you're grabbing out of the air. You're trying to set them up. They've been injured. They may not be able to work again. They have a family. There's stress and all that. What factors in? We're going to go like 30 seconds a shot here. I know this is sorry to really.
So damages generally fall into two camps: economic and non-economic damages. And by that I mean, what are the economic damages? Are things I could pull out a calculator and figure out what's my lost wages, what are my medical expenses, what are the things that loss of services that I can have an economist or somebody calculate what they're worth. And then non-economic damages make up everything else, like your pain and suffering, not for just for the past, but for the future. What's my loss of enjoyment of life? What are the things that I've experienced? What's it worth to sit in pain day in, day out for the past 3 years while I'm waiting for my case to go to trial? And then if I know I have a permanent injury, what's that going to be worth every day for the rest of my life? Think about it, Joe. What's the average? I know in New Jersey now it's $15 an hour is the minimum wage. And PA, I don't think we've upgraded that number just yet.
$7, not even $8.
Embarrassing. It's sub $8. So, when you think about this, but if you were to apply for a job and the job description was sit around in your house in pain and not be able to work or function with your family, what would it take you to do that on an hourly basis every day? And say we did that. That would take a lot of money to sit around in pain and be miserable and suffer each day. So when you have to put it into context for the jury, to some extent, there is some guesswork and projection work as to what a case is worth in some abstract, but you can use comparable cases, but no two plaintiffs are the exact same. And I always think that most plaintiffs are undercompensated for what they go through. And obviously I'm saying that as a plaintiff source, so I know that is sometimes I have an implicit bias there, but I try to think about it in the sense that these folks, people know what it's like to live with debilitating back pain, whether it's caused by an accident or, just the aging process and back pain is no joke and neck pain is no joke. And
Sean, the only difference between somebody not living a life with dignity and being able to provide your family is often you getting that recovery. It's not about some dude on the back of a bus holding up money, with money bags. It's not. This is real life stuff. Okay?
Yeah, this is not a dog in a top hat. This is a real lawyer getting you work, getting the things done.
Sean, we got 2 minutes left.
Yeah.
Contingency fee agreement to retain your services. Okay, I would sit here and look at this broadcast, and I'd be like, no way I can afford that guy. Yeah. But there are no out-of-pocket costs, which means there's no reason why somebody can't secure an attorney, retain an attorney like yourself. What is the contingency fee agreement, my friend?
Yeah, contingency fee agreement allows us to represent folks for no costs up front, no retainers up front. We take a risk and invest in their case in the form of our time and our money to bring them the best possible resolution in a case. In exchange for that, we would take a percentage of any recovery that we make in that case. And each state, New Jersey has a statutory cap on what you can charge. PA, we can choose as lawyers what we charge in conjunction with the client. But the reality is if we don't make a recovery and we are not successful, there's no insurance, or we lose a trial. We take that risk, and it gives the consumer a world-class legal service with no money up front, whereas the defense lawyers out there, the folks that are getting paid hourly, they get paid win or lose. My interests are aligned with the clients. The more they get, the more I get. So I'm going to fight for every dollar for them.
And the fact of the matter is, you're also, if there's experts that are needed that are very expensive, it never comes out of the client's pocket.
Yeah,
There's never any out-of-pocket cost. Sean, real quick,
Yeah, listen. I mean, we've lost trials before, right? We sometimes you have to take cases to trial that aren't guaranteed, and we lost one. I lost 30 grand, my own money, and that was money I invested in that case. We lost expert fees, things like that. But that's a risk you take when you try cases. Any lawyer that tells you they have not lost a trial, they haven't tried enough cases.
Sean, contact information if somebody wants to get in touch.
Yeah, we're really easy. It's Quinn Law Group. We're at quinnlawyers.com and soon to be launched Win with Quinn because that's
because it's fantastic. Listen,
because that's what we do.
Fantastic opening broadcast here on the Lawyer to Lawyer Network, and of course on the new StreamYard platform. I want to thank everybody for tuning in to Top Lawyer with Sean Quinn here on WWDB Talk 860, and now available on Apple TV, Roku TV, and Fire TV via the NetStream app. On behalf of Sean Quinn, I'm Joe Doherty. Thanks for being with us, everybody.
Thanks.
Welcome to the Jet Setters and the High Rollers, to the Shot Takers and the Tastemakers. Welcome to the Viewfinders, the Thrill Seekers, and the Night Owls. Welcome to everything you could possibly want on one 5-mile island. Welcome to the Wildwoods. Book your stay today.